the market and how leading agencies measure, evaluate, and look at it in terms of the total mix. I'd like the panel to introduce themselves, explain their organization, and as part of that, how they see their role in defining and measuring the role of OTT in the multi-screen video mix. Julie.
I'm Julie Anson. I work at Magna, which is the holding company center of excellence for IPG media brands and all Magna affiliate agencies as well. I personally lead all of the holding company's advanced advertising investments and partnerships, anything data-driven linear, addressable, OTT streaming, FEP, a million acronyms, and ACR. The way we kind of fit it in is we've kind of taken the approach where instead of OTT being an extension of linear, it's more that it is the new linear. So the approach we've taken is to just redefine television as is, to include linear, but also VOD and OTT. So as I sit in the larger upfront traditional partnership management investment group, that's kind of where we have fed OTT in the bigger picture.
Hi, my name is Marissa Jimenez. I work for Modi Media. Modi Media is a specialty agency within Group M, and we focus on advanced television. We define advanced television by the usage of data to inform TV or video that's consumed on a TV screen, whether it's data-driven linear, addressable, or connected TV. We have differentiated the Modi offering of connected TV really as an extension of addressable or kind of inclusive of addressable MVPD plus OTT. So therefore, everything that we measure is attribution, whether it's sales lift, brand health, location, or website visitation. Everything is done in a test and control environment, so we can directly attribute the results to that campaign. And then using those insights to then inform how we go to market video holistically.
Chris?
Chris Peterson, managing partner R2C Group. We are a 100% DTC shop. So all of our clients have direct relationship with their customers, a lot of e-commerce clients, very fast growth companies. So as a result, measurement for us is, front-end audience measurement, absolutely. That's a starting point, and then it's all about the business outcomes, and we can get into the details of that. With regard to OTT specifically, though, it's huge for us in the last 12 months, and moving forward, OTT just only accelerates with our clients. We see the performance, as we've measured it, to be extremely strong in spite of higher CPMs, and I think there are a lot of reasons for that. So it's very important to our practice, and we're super excited about it, and I like the OTT is the new linear, or, we're gonna have clients by the end of this year who are gonna be 100% OTT. They may not have huge budgets, but it will make perfect sense for them to be 100% on OTT and zero linear. And that's as a result of measurement on the back end, proving out that that makes perfect sense.
Great. So we've already coined a new Madison Avenue buzz term. OTT is the new, linear is the new linear, not the new black. Okay. Linear is in the red, right?
Sure.
No,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
So what I heard from all of you is that it's a pretty data-informed process. So measurement's a funny word because, there's measurement in the front end. I mean, you do all your planning and targeting and media mix stuff, and then there's this negotiation and purchase in the middle, certainly for linear, and in different ways for nonlinear. And then there's this post on the back end, and if it's a performance buy tied to an actual outcome or business KPI. So can you just focus in on what you mean by measurement of OTT, and how do you know you're buying this supply of something?
I am not as fortunate as these two. Being part of the larger investment group, we deal in upfronts, we deal in GRPs, and we still see value in those larger linear plays. It's not even that OTT is the new linear, it's just that it's 1/3 of new TV, which linear is a part of as well. So for a lot of our streaming partnerships, Nielsen DAR has to be a mandatory component. As we kind of try to translate TV into digital, we're also translating digital back into television. Creating OTT and streaming into a language that is comfortable for a linear buyer, so that when we do major upfronts with a traditional network or a Roku, a Hulu, a SpotX, we are able to show it to clients on the same GRP flowchart as their traditional buys, so that it is the same sort of measurement. And then on the other side of the house, we have Cadreon, and you heard Lorene yesterday, which is completely the audience-driven, data-driven, and addressable approach. So that, of course, is done much more with data-informed planning, high-value audiences, and back-end measurement and outcomes as well. So it definitely comes in my shop where the conversation stems from. But it's certainly finding that standardization, whether it is a GRP on a demo or an impression on a strategic target.
Okay. Actually, if I could just follow up on that. So you're only dealing with legacy partners when you approach the OTT market?
No.
No. Okay.
So our approach has been within our traditional upfronts, creating our own linear and FEP negotiations that actually breaks our FEP down into the 3 platforms. Okay. I strongly don't think FEP should be a thing because it's 2/3 television, but it is sold digitally. VOD alone is split up into 2 different buying, measurement, and tracking mechanisms. So we've worked with each linear partner to tackle that space, and then we've taken a kind of 4-pillar streaming approach to where we have 100% of the connected TV audience, all OEMs, devices, and inventory partners in kind of an interconnect approach, where we went publisher direct to ensure that through any platform, it's kind of a BYOI, bring your own inventory. So that's to answer that question, not just traditional.
So Marissa, how do you define the measurement of the inventory you're acquiring when you go to market?
Yeah, so all of the buys that we do are done based on what the target is that we're looking for. So it is based on a third party that defined the target. So whether it's an NCS or Experian, and then we buy impressions based on where that audience is.
Okay, so then the purchase is done on the third-party measurement.
We're buying it on an impression level, yes, and then measuring it via the third party to validate the results. But the cost isn't impression-based.
So it's the supplier's estimates, log data? How are you?
Yes.
Okay. And Chris?
And then we validate it through the ad server that we use, usually Innovid.
So more of a traditional digital, okay.
Yeah, so for us, we, with our clients, because they're DTC, we start with a business objective. It's like, what does this company want to do? They could be a more mature brand for incremental growth. It could be 2x growth every year because they're high growth, e-commerce. It could be a turnaround. And so we understand what the overall objective is. Then we ingest the customer data and we perform our own segmentation on it. And that segmentation is then directly linked to linear programming down to the program level. For OTT, we look at the segmentation, we have a business discussion with our client about, does this segmentation represent the future, or is there a shift that we need to undergo? And I'm working with a client right now in a turnaround situation where the secondary segment is actually the future and the primary segment is not. So we look at the segmentation and then we go to, okay, based on this audience, how big a role should OTT play? Okay. So with a lot of our clients, they're coming from a very digital mindset, extreme digital mindset. And so OTT to them is one of the first things they want to go to. There's no selling in of OTT. They almost want to do too much of it too fast. So we look at the segmentation. We then, when the campaign goes live, we then have weekly measures of signals and brand. So we get our daily brand numbers for competitors and our clients out of YouGov. Then we report on that weekly. Then we report on signals from a TV campaign weekly, but that's more from the linear side, not OTT, because there are no signals from OTT because it's all on demand. And then we employ modeling monthly in order to get to the right allocation of OTT versus linear. And then we use the modeling to drill into platform, station, rotation, program if the buy is big enough. With modeling, you've got to have a certain amount of weight in something for it to be picked up. But when we start with OTT, the rule of thumb with modeling is, that we use is if it's at least 20% of the buy, then modeling should be able to pick it up in terms of an overall allocation of that component. And over the past 12 to 18 months, I got to tell you, the modeling keeps telling us to push more and more and more into OTT where the segmentation suggests it. And that's in spite of higher CPMs. And we don't think it's just that it's a lighter linear viewer. We think in some cases there's a lighter ad load. And we think also because the media is on demand that there's more engagement with the ads themselves. Now that's all speculation. I can't prove that.
But it's working.
Yeah, I can't prove it, but we see it in the business impact. And what's interesting to me is that audience measurement doesn't pick up that nuance, okay, in terms of looking at how impressions might vary in terms of business impact.
So I did hear a dichotomy here a little bit. So it sounds like both Modi and R2C are more focused on identifying the audience, procuring the inventory, and then measuring the back-end results, and then replicating or adopting your model. And it sounds like Magna is still more of a kind of a front-end look in terms of targeting the audience, looking at the measurement, and I know you're looking at the post on the back end too, but is this a fair description of the two ways you look at measuring OTT value?
Yeah, again, I think we have these two paths. We have this, it fits within your more traditional plan. It is the new TV, so let's plan it as TV, or more of the Modi model of identifying a third-party data set, applying it as you would with traditional addressable. It's just instead of sending RFPs to Comcast, NCC, Dish, and DirecTV, you also have Roku and Hulu and Crackle in the mix. But yeah, I think that idea of looking at TV as one holistic universe and finding the audience across it, so we're really planning, trying to manage reach frequency across it. You know, I know Jesse yesterday mentioned, sorry Jesse, I'm not picking on you, but I was thinking about this all night. Like I didn't sleep, no, I'm just kidding. But he mentioned that it's not a really big play coming from the addressable world, and I know you'll know what I mean. There's actually a point of diminishing return if your frequency is not managed. They will not buy your product because they've been hit too many times. So we very much are in the reach frequency model, not because it's a traditional way of planning and buying, but actually because because of addressable TV, really been able to see that dip in return on ad spend and lift and everything at a 5 weekly frequency. So yeah, it is more front end, but.
Yeah, I'm just curious how you can actually do that without having user-centric data about their exposure. Your company just acquired Axiom, so you're going to have awesome data pretty soon, if not already. Do you think we'll ever get it down to the actual individual level where it's user ID or device ID?
I think it'll be a device ID, but that again is a household. User level is going to require immense amount of device graphs and I don't know if it's polygoning or pentagoning, but when you create the dwelling, because in order to get down to a user level, you're going to have to identify, this is really in the weeds. My boss says this is too much sausage, how the sausage is made, but you're going to have to determine while the device ID of your set-top box has an ad call, if your device ID of your mobile device is also being activated within a 5-foot radius to get down to the user level. Device ID on a set-top box or a television, it's still TV, which is kind of why we've made such a stink about OTT being television and not digital, is because it is no matter what, 85% on the screen, lean back, co-viewed environment. And so even when we get down to that device ID of the OEM or set-top box, there still could be 5 people in the room. It's not holding your phone. So again, maybe 15 years from now, we will have device graphs that know that I'm holding my phone sitting in front of a TV. But I don't even think we want that just yet.
So OTT is the new sausage then.
Once a week I get told I love how the sausage is made.
I wanted to bring up Jonathan Sterr's presentation yesterday because I thought it was really interesting and get you all to react to it. But sticking with what you just said about getting down to the user or device, I noticed one of his silos had location data in it. I think it was ground truth or something. But, you know, we now have the ability to know, like I'm sitting here next to you, my longitude and latitude. You don't see it getting there, or I'd like all of you to think about that too. Do you think we'll ever target TV or OTT or the new whatever that way, down to the fact that, you know, I'm here?
We'll have to do it for, again, reach frequency management. I'll identify that you sit in front of this device and have been exposed to this ad via 7 different campaigns. So maybe my 8th campaign should throttle the frequency down a bit. But again, we're, you know, these two probably much more so because they're doing such granular targeting. Where again, if I'm looking at that GRP flowchart under my pillow, look, you know, user level device ID is only going to play such a part when my target is adults.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, we're not so much just doing programmatic and addressable. I want to make that clear because, I mean, for us, the audience measurement piece is critical, and the segmentation to us, it's not just where my audience is. To us, the segmentation reveals so much, and it has to be based on first-party data. Then we can live with an approximation of audience measurement because we're going to live in modeling and saturation curves to tell us investment levels by tier within linear, linear versus OTT, linear versus OTT and digital video, within linear, station, rotation, daypart program. You know, that becomes this corrective force, and the audience measurement results they overlap heavily with those results, the modeling results, but it's not 100%. And there's all these nuances within media consumption that create these variations. And modeling isn't perfect. I'm not going to say it's like this ideal thing. It's got a lot of its own issues, its approximations. But there have been huge advances in modeling just over the last 12 to 24 months in media measurement. And I think it's what ends up bringing all of this together, quite honestly.
Yeah, so this is my big dilemma with the convergence of two worlds colliding, linear and digital, whether it's video, TV, or any other form of media, which is you have these two mentalities, one that grew up out of more of an efficient audience targeting, mass reach, incremental reach, and the other based on outcome modeling and performance. And the two seem to be coming together right away right now. But I still hear very distinct ways about how you go to market with OTT. And I think that's the function of this panel, to try and get at it. I personally think we're moving away from traditional audience measurement as evaluation. It still will always be an intermediary currency because you have to trade on something, whether it's log data or DAR ratings, you call them, yeah. But, you know, my question is, can we throw the baby out with the bathwater and just go directly to performance modeling? Why wouldn't you?
Rhetorical, or should I answer?
Yeah, answer.
When you're at a bigger shop, and I came from client side, and I actually was Modi's client. And look, back then I bought 100% addressable. Everything was done on an outcome. When you go into a bigger shop with no tune-in clients, and I was a tune-in client, these groups are just testing out high-value audiences. My Vantage KPIs, line item by line item, still tend to say reach and audience composition. And that's in a data-driven buy.
Because that's the legacy of how it's always...
Because that's the legacy, it's client-driven. So I think to wake up and say, I'm just going to go from adults 25 to 54 reach to complete business outcome guarantees, it's very A to Z with absolutely no letters in between. I think start targeting, start measuring. I mean, everything Modi's doing is using those learnings on a household level to plan ahead. I assume you guys are doing the same to an extent, but I think we as a bigger shop with, you know, giant QSR, CPG, and pharma, ton of pharma, there at least also needs to be a little bit of a crawl, walk, run mentality, where how can you guarantee on a business outcome if you've never done a closed loop attribution study? There's no benchmarks.
Well, it's all degree of confidence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have a QSR brand who, if the food causes people to get sick, but you're on a business outcome guarantee, that is not the media, you know, there's still a lot to learn in our shop before we completely wake up and say we're doing nothing but business outcome guarantees.
Well, I think it's highly subjective how one brand performs versus another. It's too kind of all over the place in order to do a guaranteed buy based on that. I mean, I'd like to see a world in which we're pricing it based on the value of reaching that audience. So can you reach them somewhere less expensive if they're consuming more and more media?
Yeah, I think it's coming down to what is a currency for acquiring inventory versus the guarantee or the outcome or the... So we had a story this morning on MediaPost about CETO, which is like Ground Truth, a location-based data company that allows you to programmatically acquire audiences based on where they are, and they announced a guarantee. The guarantee is negotiated KPI. It's based on what do you want your brand to deliver, and then they make good on that. Just kind of like Network TV Day. Yesterday I had a conversation with the CEO of a big 5 agency holding company who was, we're going to write about this in the next week, I can't say it yet, but he wants to move the entire industry and his organization to outcome-based television buys. And, you know, I said, you know, how are you going to actually go to market and acquire the, quote, GRPs and things? And we'll work those out. But we are in an age now where you can do a cost per tune-in or channel turn or whatever your KPI is, as long as you have the rigor of the data doing it. So
Yeah, and you need to make sure that there's still transparency in agency compensation, because plenty of agencies have gone down that path in the past with black boxes of media that were just horrific. So
name some names? Or?
No. Well, I mean, there's little pockets of the agency industry that are, you know, so-called, you know, performance-based, right? That, you know, they will do it because they see higher margins, right? And then what happens is the brand hits a ceiling really fast because that margin prevents scale, if you can, you know, if that makes sense, right? And so transparency in compensation has to go along with guarantees on business outcomes, and that, you know, that has to be reconciled.
Yeah, a question for you because of your organization orientation. This is not true of Interpublic, but we're in a world now where, you know, Wonderman dominates JWT and MRY is the lead dog, and we've moved more towards performance mentality. So to Chris's point, do you think there's a push in the agency holding companies now to move to these models because, hey, it's politically correct. Why wouldn't your clients want a performance outcome against their objectives, right? I mean,
They do, but again, we're not quite ready to guarantee our $3 to $5 billion of upfront money on outcomes because we're still not even measuring TV or OTT the right way. Again, it's just a huge leap. You know, as IPG, one thing we're hot and heavy, and by we I totally mean David Cohen, is hot and heavy about is really pushing even just ECM. I mean, the Nielsen DAR and the GRP is based on an average. So can we at least get down to the exact commercial minute? That alone would organically drive growth and a share shift into FEP and streaming, because that actually would, you know, create a world where the rating is exact, which may be lower because traditional linear is declining, but overall viewership isn't, it's just shifting. So if we're exact in traditional linear, that'll drive more into what is the new redefined TV. You know, for us, that alone would be a huge shift in the industry, because that also opens up opportunities for Nielsen TAR, total audience rating, which really is going to start making a TV impression much more recognizable to a digital impression.
sounds like, go ahead.
Well, and I think it boils down to, I don't think it's about guaranteeing a business outcome, honestly. I think it's what you're optimizing to, okay? What's the KPI? And the KPI A traditional KPI in a lot of advertising is reach and deduplicated reach and GRPs, hitting a GRP goal. And on the flip side, there's optimizing to a business outcome. So it's an optimization, it's where you're pointing your optimization, right? And so then it just brings up, well, how are you measuring on the back end? And with a DTC company, it's far easier, right? I mean, I admit that. But modeling can also attack retail distribution and other things as well. And actually, the modeling that's applied today to advertising comes out of consumer packaged goods. I mean, the people we hire on staff did it for CPG companies and did it for American Express and companies like that. And it's funny how it's all kind of starting to come together that way. So I think it's, I think it's just, what are you optimizing to? Where's the course correction down the road in terms of a business outcome to adjust the plan so it's not just audience measured?
Yes, I know we have a short panel, so we should go to questions, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jesse. I don't have a question. I just wanted to challenge Julie to an arm wrestling match.
After the hike yesterday, you're going to win.
I wanted to follow up on Joe's question about frequency, because you had asked about how is Julie measuring dips in return on investment without user level data on frequency. And so I am curious, how are you measuring or finding out about the impact of frequency on your ROI?
We have a deck that looks very similar to Stoyer's deck yesterday.
But since OTT is sort of infamous for a frequency issue, I mean,
yes.
it's YouTube without the skip button. So I'm really curious about how the OTT channels are addressing it with you guys and how you're addressing it, because it's become the joke of the channel already.
Yeah, so I can, do you want to go first?
No, go for it.
I can answer one of the things that we're doing. So what we do is we take the insights that we get from an addressable campaign or an OTT in terms of what's the optimal frequency. We have to combine that with what the linear campaign did to come up with kind of the average household frequency. But then we're able to use some of the ACR partners now to monitor the weekly frequency and deliver incremental impressions on a weekly, almost real-time basis. So we do it kind of twice a week to continue to add frequency. What we have to do, unfortunately, is blacklist the different OTT partners so we can avoid duplication as best as possible. We've historically had hundreds of campaigns, and so we look at what the average reach is by each of the OTT partners, and then we plan the campaigns accordingly and monitor the frequency that way.
Is the frequency issue a problem of duplication?
I mean,
or is
I
it a
think
problem
so.
that there's something in the pipes that's broken?
There's something in the pipes that's broken. Yeah.
I don't think there's something in the pipes that's broken. I think it's a business decision.
Okay.
I really do. Because
I don't know what's going on. They know. All right, they're winking and nodding.
My whole summer was negotiating FEP by partner out of last year's broadcast, and the clear business decision to not let me out of a 2 times per hour, 7 time per, no daily cap, 2 time per hour, when I went in with one time per user per day, meaning somewhere in the middle, varying by partner, but as all of a sudden my frequency caps, if I negotiated hard enough, were doable. It is just a business decision, because the reality is they lose money.
Did they stick to it?
Yeah, I mean, we have some people that'll just accommodate any custom frequency ask because
it is a problem.
they can do it, but
It's a problem.
if I were on the other side, it's like a debate team. I was just assigned this side, but from their side, like, let's be real. And like all my like traditional network people are like, yeah, you suck. But it's harder to deliver. If I start telling you can only hit this one person, I mean, one of the networks, I will not name who it was, even started to fight that it'll affect my reach. And I very calmly pointed out that the reach stays the same. It's just how many times you hit the same person.
You might get the dog in the room.
Right,
Yeah.
I know, oh my God. I always have like tomatoes being thrown at me. But, so I really have seen in the past year, it is a true business decision. It is something for delivery, and I get it. You might lose a little money if you start putting very tight frequency caps. They've tried putting premiums on my frequency caps. But across the industry, again, to Stoyer's model, it's about that household. and that was a great point about ACR. If I have a linear body, doing it on a household level.
And we add, just to add to that mix, you can also use modeling and look at saturation curves by if the spend is big enough, if it's a big enough percentage for the model to pick it up. So if someone's gaming the frequency on you somehow, it's going to show up in the saturation curve. And the weekly investment versus KPI, you're going to know you're oversaturated in a platform. You will cut off the dollars at a specific point on that curve, and you will move the next dollars to another platform.
Hi guys, it's Josh Martin from Performix. Just a quick question. Really related to the consumer value exchange. A concern that I have is that linear being so mature, the consumer value exchange is very much established and I think fairly comfortable for the consumer. But in OTT environments, do you think that holds, especially in the world of ad blockers and people trying to deploy new technologies to escape the advertising? Do you think that's going to sink the OTT ship?
One word, DVRs. I mean, people have been blocking TV ads for a long time, but.
No. I mean, I think over 50%, including Netflix, over 50% is viewed ad-supported OTT. I mean, the reality is that Netflix will probably become ad-supported as well. Yeah, it seems.
Yeah, and I would throw in there that a year and a half ago, we were very dubious of OTT platforms just simply because of the cost, even though we knew an audience would be there. But over the last year and a half, we've seen OTT outperform linear with, somewhat similar measures, sort of approximated measures on the front end. And we think there's value to OTT inventory that goes beyond the value of linear in just the nature of its environment. So I think that counteracts some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think part of the value of OTT is that it's all measurable, and it's measurable at the household level, individual level.
And not to mention it's actual TV content, for the most part. I understand. Slow trains.
I mean, I guess that goes to how are we defining it, right? So if we define OTT as premium content being delivered on your TV screen, then I don't think we'll have that problem.
Okay, I'll just wrap up with the lightning round questions. So go across. Beefaroni or SpaghettiOs?
Okay. SpaghettiOs.
Beefaroni.
Yeah, beefaroni.
This is going to be a hell of a roundtable. We're going to have a roundtable on this topic, and I want to be there. So.